eMTBs are, as you already know, amazing for muddy rides, which here in the UK is a staple of winter riding. You can get more grip, more traction, and then there's the battery boost, of course, which makes them a hoot to ride in boggy conditions, way more so than their non-boosted brethren. Now, unlike those boosted brethren, we need to take a slightly different approach to cleaning up an eMTB after a bog blast. So, let's begin. Okay, before we start, we're just going to run through some of the kit that you'll need to wash your eMTB. So, first, we'll need some brushes. These ones are PT's ones, and they've got 4 specific brushes for 4 different tasks. We'll go through that in the walkthrough. We've got 2 different coloured cloths, and there's a reason why you need them in different colours. Again, we'll go through that in the walkthrough. You'll need some bike cleaner. This one's loam foam. It's really good. Again, we'll go through how it works in the walkthrough. You'll need some drivetrain degreaser. And for when the bike's all cleaned up and you're prepping it ready to ride, you'll need some chain lube. Not essential, but very handy, is a bike stand. Now, to wash the bike, you might need a hose or a bucket or a jet wash. We're going to use a hose. Okay, we've got the kit, we've got the water. All we need is a really muddy bike. Steve. Here's one Steve's prepared earlier. Perfect. Before we go hog wild, we've chatted to quite a few brands about cleaning an eMTB versus cleaning a non-boosted bike. And there's a couple of things that we should be really mindful about. Obviously, there's a battery, there's a motor, there's a sensitive wiring loop in there as well, there's the head unit. So be really mindful about when you're rinsing down or when you're hosing down, especially when you're using some pressure washers that are quite powerful, not to blast head units, not to blast the motor area, and especially not the battery. Most of the brands recommend that you keep your battery in place, but check your user manual because it will probably have specific instructions in there too. So yeah, just don't go hog wild and try and peel the paint off with a pressure washer. And for this reason, we're just using a hose and a little bit more elbow grease. Okay, first step is with our hose, is just to give it a rinse down because lots of this mud is caked on, it's almost baked on in fact. So we'll just give it a rinse down with water and then we'll start with a cleaner. So with the bike rinse down, we're just going to give it a bit of a mist with a cleaner. We're going to focus on the tyres to start with, but if we missed all components, be mindful not to directly spray brakes, either the rotors or the calipers themselves. Now, what's great about PT's, a few other brands do it, but PT's is probably the most famous, is they've got a little switch and you can kind of clip the cover over, and then it does this great foaming action. And that's great because essentially the cleaner can stay on those parts and clean them nicely. With the loam foam foamed, we're now going to start. Now, we're going to start with PT's brush. I mean, obviously you can get lots of other brands of brushes. The PT ones are really nice. So this one's their Tyre one. It's got some terracing in it, so it means it's really good for tyres. Now, I can already hear some keyboard warriors about to get onto the keyboard and start smashing away of like, why are you starting on the tyres first? There's other bits, you just start from the top. All valid points, actually. But the reason why I'm going to start with tyres is when we start cleaning all the other bits, as soon as you flick the tyre around when it's covered in mud, you'll then get crud all over your clean bike. So start with the muddiest part, which in often cases is your tyres. So let's begin. Some days later, the wheels were clean. So with most of the dirt agitated and rubbed in, especially with the cleaner on, it should all just rinse off. Just like that. Now we've finished with the tyres, good idea just to rinse the brush off so it's all set for the next time you wash your bike. After we've cleaned up the wheels, the next part of the bike to clean is the drivetrain. PT's have got a degreaser. Theirs is foaming, which is quite fun, and effectively it means that we can spray it on, thus, and it foams and stays on there a little bit better than some of the other sprayers out there. So we're just going to try and focus the spray away from the disc rotor and away from the pads and keep it just on the chain and the cassette. So the reason why we're using a degreaser on the chain and drivetrain is because, well, we've specifically used, or you'll have specifically used, a oil or a grease, a type of grease on the chain, whereas on the rest of the bike, hopefully we've not greased the frame. So the loam foam or your bike cleaner that you're using is just there to lift off the dirt and mud that's on there. Whereby with the degrease that we're spraying on, being really careful not to get it on the rotor, or not on the rotor as much as possible, is it's there to actually take off, a little bit of mud, a little bit of dirt, but also to break down that grease that's on there. So when we reapply, we're reapplying to a fresh, clean chain. So I'm a mechanic, and like many mechanics, I'm a bit of a creature of habit. So I always shift down into the lowest sprocket, just so that I got a little bit more access when I clean it with a brush. PT, again, they've designed a really nice brush. It's terraced just in there. So you can see that there's higher teeth, literally teeth on the outside than there is in the in. And it's got an angled handle, so when I back pedal, I can just keep my hand there and not gouge my knuckles, which can happen when you've got cold hands. So yeah, this one is a little bit like cleaning before. We've just got to spray and agitate all that mud off. So we've got to just get stuck in. Close attention to the jockey wheels. With this SRAM mech, I can actually fold it out, and then using the tip of my thumb just to guide the jockey wheel around, just try and clean off the gunge and gunk reel that you can get. Okay, I think I've kind of given the chain a really good degreasing, and what we'll do now is give the drivetrain a good rinse down and see how good or bad a job I've done. So after I've rinsed it down, I can see that I still need a little bit more work on the chain. So I'm gonna degrease a little bit more. I'm being mindful though, although it's a little bit breezy, that trying not to spray too much of the degreaser around. PTs have designed theirs to be safe on the rotor. I mean, don't spray it directly on there, but other brands of degreaser can be they can be quite harmful for rotors and pads. So be really careful. If you're using sort of automotive products, sometimes those can be quite harsh. So do try your best to mask rotors and pads, especially from overspray. Another thing to say about the PTs is they've designed their degreaser to be a really good degreaser for their lubes. So it means that if you've used PT's lubes before, it will easily kind of break that down and you'll be able to rub it off. What it sometimes will struggle with is if you've used a non-PT's lube beforehand. I'm thinking some of the other thicker, really oily greases that go a bit claggy. Sometimes this degreaser might not have enough punch to take it out. But PTs, as do other brands, have more powerful solvent-based degreasers. So what you might have to do is take your chain off and give it a clean with a solvent cleaner instead. But I'll just do a bit more scrubbing. So to all the keyboard warriors that were wondering about why we're doing tyres, then drivetrain, then we're going to kind of wash the rest of the bike. This is the reason why, as I'm scrubbing, maybe it's just me, but you often get lots of overspray. So you can see it here on the frame. I'm doing it to exaggerate, but it's one of the reasons why we're going to clean the tyres, then the drivetrain, then the whole bike, because those are the messiest bits first, and then the frame should clean up really well. Okay, with the drivetrain pretty much clean, and the wheels and tyres pretty much clean, it's time to crack on with the rest. Now, PEs have got this awesome bog brush. That's generally the name. I've put a bit more loam foam on. We'll just give the frame a good rinse down now, and then get busy with this really nice soft brush, but obviously other soft brushes are available. A useful tip I've learned the hard way from not doing is by not starting at the top. So with all the kind of like mud nicely agitated, start rinsing from the top down. I've done it many a time where I've kind of cleaned the bottom of the bike only to realise that grips, saddle, whole of the top of the bike is basically covered in crust and mud. So when I rinse that, it then migrates down. So start at the top with your rinsing and then work all the way down your bike. For those hard to reach places, a long pointy brush is always really handy. Just say back of fork legs are always good. This one's got a nice cotton tip on the end because sometimes they can have quite a sharp edge, so just be mindful about that when you're jabbing it into places that you probably shouldn't jab it into, so go gentle with brushes. Okay, with the bike mostly devoid of dirt, mostly, if there's a few patches I've missed, it's time to dry it up. Now, PTs offer two different coloured microfiber cloths, actually not microfiber, they're bamboo fibre, but they're a soft cloth. Two colours, you ask, but why? Well, quite cleverly, and actually you could replicate this yourself. Keep the kind of grey, dirty one for a job we're going to do in a bit, which is checking that the chain is nice and dry before we lube it, and then you can keep the nice light coloured one to dry down the frame. So whilst you're wiping and drying down the frame, have a look around sort of like head tubes or higher stress areas, because now the bike's nice and clean, you can see if you've taken a bit of a stack, you can have a look for cracks. This one, because James is such a smooth rider, is free from any damage at all. Okay, with the bike all clean, the frame and the wheels all nice and dry, it's time to pay some attention to the drivetrain. We've got two cloths here, a nice kind of bright one that you can see didn't do the best cleaning job because it's got a bit of dirt on, but we've used that to dry the frame, so we can put that to one side and then we'll get our dark cloth for cleaning the chain. So we can just back pedal and check any spots that we'd missed before. With the chain nice and dry, we're going to apply some all-weather lube, do it drip by drip. So I'm just dripping a small amount, hopefully you can see, a small amount on each of the rollers. So we're going to do that for the whole chain, so that can soak in behind that roller. That's the sort of the bearing, effectively, of the chain. Once we've done the whole chain, we'll just wipe off the excess. We can also put some lubricant and protect and shine onto the frame. I mean, it looks nice to have a shiny frame. It can help take some of the mud off next time you ride, but big thing to be careful about it is that it is shiny and slippery, and thus, if you apply it to your bike and you just blast it on, there's a good chance that you can get excess spray kind of on surfaces that you don't really want. I'm thinking braking, because you want friction there, you want it to slow you down. So if you still want to use a spray to shine up your bike and help it get less muddy next time, do it on a cloth separately, out of the way, and then you can apply it. Shiny bike in a can. We've cleaned a bike. It's all ready to go again. If you've got any tips, if you've got any tricks, put them in the comments below. But yeah, time to give this bike back to Jonesy to get it all muddy again. Oh well, enjoy.